Good morning. Welcome to Plutus IAS. So this is Murali Sir. So in today's lecture, we'll discuss about the current year's UPSC CSE Mains GS paper. Particularly here in this video, I will discuss history questions. So as you know, so we'll have 3 questions in 10 marker section and 3 questions in 15 marker section. Okay, from history. So history in the sense history and as well as art and culture. Okay. So let us see those questions. See, basically, as compared to previous year papers, the current year's GS1 paper, particularly history questions, were quite simple and straightforward as compared to earlier papers. Okay, if you compare 2024, 2025 papers, so this year papers are more simple but analytical questions, expecting some sort of analytical answers from the students, actually, right? So only those, rather than factual information, those students who use that factual information in analytical parts can gain more good marks, right? So let us see those questions. So anyhow, I will discuss the questions individually. So first of all, let us see the questions itself. Analyze the importance of Ashokan inscriptions for reconstructing Mauryan history. So this is a question from ancient section. So that is directly from Mauryan Empire. The second question is, discuss the impact of Macaulay's minutes on colonial administration and education in India. So this is the second 10 marker question. This is from modern section, especially the part of British reforms in India in the early period of 19th century, right? So coming to third question, the significance of Gandhian movements lay in the masses they mobilized. Elucidate. So this is third 10 marker question. So which is also from modern India, especially from Indian national movement, right? Next, coming to 15 markers. The 11th question is, Vijayanagara architecture exemplifies the amalgamation of past traditions with contemporary practices. Elucidate with examples. So this is this comes under medieval section, but specifically related to art and culture part, right? And coming to the next question, linguistic reorganization of Indian states was driven by popular pressure from below. Comment. So this is another 15 marker question. This is from post-independence section, especially that is after independence. And the last question is, the model of planned economy was adopted in India to address the regional imbalances left behind by colonial rule. Comment. So this is the third 15 marker question, so which is also from post-independence part. So this means out of 6 questions, we have 1 question from ancient India, 1 question from art and culture, 2 questions from modern India, and 2 questions from post-independence. So this is the structure of current year's GS1 paper, particularly with respect to history questions. Okay, so let us see those questions individually. So we'll discuss each of the question and we'll see how to approach these questions, how to form the structure, and how to form the content in these questions, right? So let us start with first question. So this question is from ancient India, right? So analyze. See, basically, see, before starting anything, so I would like to remind you that whatever the question that you have to write, so you have to keep in mind few aspects, how to approach a question or how to write an answer for UPSC mains questions. So here, the elements that you have to keep in mind while writing an answer is, first of all, interpretation of question, or we can say interpretation of demand of question, right? So first and foremost task is to interpret the demand of the question. Second is approach. The second most important thing is how you see. Approach will not be the same for all questions. Approach depends on many aspects. Okay. The third is content. So the basic flesh of the answer, that is content. The next is structure. So you have to, you cannot write essay format in GS answer or GS format in essay answer, right? So every answer, every question will have its specific structural format. Next is presentation. Presentation means use of diagrams, use of flow charts, use of headings, subheadings, right? So that would improve your presentation. And last but not least, and that is legibility. Legibility means your handwriting, that whatever you have written should be at least readable by the examiner, right? So wherever you are, whatever the answer you write, whatever the question is, whether it is GS 1, 2, 3, 4 or essay, whatever it is, so you have to follow these 6 elements. So this is like a watermark for your answer writing. So the first element that you have to follow is interpretation of demand of the question. Without interpretation of demand of question, the entire answer goes in vain, right? And the second most important is approach. See, every question will be followed by a tag word. So like in these questions itself, we have seen like analyze, elucidate, exemplify, examine, critically examine, comment, justify. So these are different keywords, different tag words, which are provided in the questions following a statement, right? So your approach should depend on that tag word. So you cannot write the same answer for every different tag words, right? So that's called approach. And next is content, the key factor. So the content which you provide in the answer should be related to the demand of the question. So you should not be something different from the demand of the question. The next is structure. Structure, basically, you know that we need intro, we need body, and we need a conclusion. So that is a common structure for, or universal structure for every answer, right? But the thing is here, how much intro has to be written, how much conclusion has to be written, what has to be put in the body. So this is the major question here. So intro to max write in 3 to 4 lines, and the main demand of the question should be addressed in the body itself, and provide if it is a analytical question, if it is a problematic question asking you for providing a solution, so provide a way forward in the conclusion, or a suggestive note, or way forward, or even just a conclusion note, again in 2 to 3 lines or 3 to 4 lines, right? So that is your structure. Presentation. So presentation means like you have to write properly in a linear fashion. You have to use proper headings in the body section, proper subheadings for minor aspects, right? You could also use diagrams. You could also use flow charts. You could also use Venn diagrams, right? So if you use them, that will improve your presentation. Okay. And last is legibility. That means it's not your handwriting must be very beautiful. That doesn't matter here in UPSC especially. Only thing is that your handwriting must be readable for the examiner, right? So just remember these key 6 elements while writing an UPSC answer. Okay. So let us see our questions now. So we are discussing the recent completed GS1 paper of CSE Mains 2026. So here in this section, I am discussing the history part and art and culture part from GS1. Okay, so let us see the questions. The first question, analyze the importance of Ashokan inscriptions for reconstructing Mauryan history. See, basically, this question is from ancient India. So as I mentioned already, in current year, we have one question from ancient India, one question from art and culture, 2 questions from modern India, and 2 questions from post-independent India. So let us see this question. So the question is about, the central theme of the question is Ashokan inscriptions. So this is the key theme. So the theme of the question, that is the question, this question is dependent on which topic? A topic called Ashokan inscriptions, right? And what's the demand? Demand is asking you to analyze the importance. Analyze importance. Importance of what? Importance of inscriptions. In what? In reconstructing Mauryan history. See, the question is all about, see, basically, for reconstructing any history, you need a source. So that is the basic requirement for reconstructing the past. So particularly here, with respect to Mauryan Empire, we have various sources. So we have literary sources like Ardhashastra, we have Indica, we have Mudra Rakshasa, we have accounts of various Greek historians like Strabo, right? And apart from these literary sources, we have archaeological records, especially Ashokan edicts. Ashokan edicts. So the question is about this Ashokan, importance of these Ashokan edicts in constructing the past history of Mauryan Empire, right? So let us see how to approach this question. So coming to intro. So we understood the demand. So we understood the central theme of the question, that is Ashokan edicts, and demand is asking you to analyze the importance of these edicts in reconstructing Mauryan history. So how you will approach the demand? So in introduction, you need to mention about Ashokan edicts. So what is about Ashokan edicts? Are archaeological records or non-literary sources, which are most important non-literary sources that helps in constructing every aspect of Mauryan Empire, whether it is cultural aspect or social aspect or political aspect or economic aspect or administrative aspect. So we need, or these Ashokan edicts helps us in identifying them. So in introduction, we should write that Ashoka, the king Ashoka erected or issued various edicts across different parts of country, different parts of the country, giving us social, economic, political, administrative, and cultural history of Mauryan Empire, right? So in introduction, you should highlight what these edicts are. What are these edicts? Edicts are Ashokan inscriptions. So these edicts includes like rock edicts and pillar edicts. So Ashoka issued numerous rock edicts and pillar edicts. So we have major rock edicts and minor rock edicts, major pillar edicts and minor pillar edicts. So basically we have 14 important major rock edicts and 7 important or we can say 7 important pillar edicts, right? So they provide the contemporary evidence. So actually, what are these? These Ashokan edicts are which sources? Primary sources or secondary sources? These are primary sources. That means these are contemporary sources. That is, these sources will have first-hand information regarding Mauryan Empire, especially from the Ashokan period, right? So that's why we can say these Ashokan edicts. So in the introduction, you have to provide that these Ashokan edicts constitute earliest deciphered written records in Indian history, because these are the earliest inscriptions, as we can say. These are deciphered. Deciphered by whom? Deciphered by James Prinsep. In 1837, James Prinsep deciphered these edicts, from which we could able to reconstruct the history of Mauryan Empire. So, which provides the contemporary information on social, economic, political, administrative, and cultural aspects of Mauryan Empire, right? So that's why regarding these Ashokan edicts, Romila Thapar said these edicts or these inscriptions are the voices of the Mauryan state. So these edicts are called as what? Voices of the Mauryan state. So that is what your introduction must be. Okay. So coming to body, as I mentioned earlier, in body, what you have to do? In body, you have to address the actual demand of the question. So what's the demand of the question here? Asking you to analyze the importance of Ashokan edicts in reconstructing the past history of Mauryan Empire, right? So let us see the importance. So here your heading must be importance of Ashokan inscriptions. See, one more thing here. So for 10 marker questions, your word limit is 150 words. For 15 marker questions, your word limit must be 250 words. So you should not more or less deviate from that, right? So let us see the importance. Let us say the political importance. So in political importance, these inscriptions gives us information on the geographical extent of kingdom. The first and foremost significance of these Ashokan edicts was, so these edicts gives us information on geographical extent of the Mauryan Empire. See, for suppose, let us take some examples. See, one most important thing in mains answer writing is your statements must be followed by proper examples or suitable examples. So this is called value addition. Put examples, data, records, policies, reports. So these are very important. So if you provide these examples or these reports or data, that adds value to your answer, right? So let us see. So it provides what? Geographical extent of kingdom. So here, let us take examples like Shabasgari inscription, Kandahar inscription, Lumini pillar inscription, Girnar inscription, Dauli inscription, and Musky inscription. See, here I have taken few examples, right? Shabasgari inscription, which is in Pakistan, Kandahar inscription, which is in Afghanistan, Lumini pillar inscription, it is in Nepal, Girnar inscription, it is in Gujarat, Dauli inscription, it is in Odisha, Musky inscription, it is in Karnataka. So actually I have taken few examples here for your understanding. So this indicates what? This indicates the territorial extent of Mauryan Empire. So Kandahar inscription indicates what? That Mauryan Empire extends up to Afghanistan. Next, Lumini pillar inscription indicates that Mauryan Empire extends up to foothills of Himalayas. Understood? Similarly, Girnar inscription indicates that Mauryan Empire extends up to Gujarat in the west. Dhauli inscription indicates that Mauryan Empire extends up to Kalinga, that is nothing but current Orissa. Musky inscription indicates that Mauryan Empire extends up to Karnataka. Understood? So these inscriptions, these rock edicts or pillar edicts indicates the geographical extent of Mauryan Empire, right? So that is one important significant aspect. So let us see the other aspects here. The second aspect is political history. See, these edicts mentions about various contemporary kingdoms. So suppose, let us take example. Suppose these edicts mentions about their contemporary dynasties like Cholas, Cheras. So I'm talking about what? Sangam dynasties here. So Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas, Satyaputras, Tamraparani, etc. Right. So this is what that these, for example, so these contemporary dynasties are mentioned in Rock Edict 13. So Rock Edict 13 mentions about different contemporary dynasties like Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas, Satyaputras, and as well as Sri Lankan rulers like Tamraparani, right? So this is another significant aspect. So this is about political history. Similarly, these edicts also gives us information about Mauryan administration. Mauryan? Some info about Mauryan Empire. Right. So coming to administration, see, these edicts mentions about various administrative officials. Mentions about various administrative officials. So here, like officials like Rajukas, Yuktas, Pradesikas. So these are various officials which are mentioned like judicial officials, administrative officials, revenue officials, which are quoted in these Ashokan edicts. Especially these are mentioned in Pillar Edict 4. So Pillar Edict 4 refers to these important administrative and judicial and revenue officials. So this indicates what? So from this information, from this Pillar Edict, so we get to know the administrative, especially the bureaucratic officials of Mauryan Empire, right? So that is coming to administration. Coming to other aspects, like wars. So another set of information. So here, coming to wars, these edicts mentions about Kalinga, the famous Kalinga war. See, as you know already, that Ashoka carried a huge military campaign against Kalinga. So this Kalinga war was mentioned in Rock Edict 13. So Rock Edict 13 mentions about the Kalinga war. So it mentions that this Kalinga war was occurred between Kalinga rulers and Mauryan rulers, especially under Ashoka. So in this Kalinga war, nearly 1 lakh people have died and nearly 2 lakh people have got injured. So this war resulted in huge violence, which led to death of many. And that actually, this significant event changed the mindset of Ashoka. So this is all mentioned in Rock Edict 13. So Rock Edict 13 refers to Kalinga War, and this Rock Edict 13 mentions about change in Ashoka, right? So that is Ashoka changed from Digvijaya to Dhammavijaya. So that is a military conquest through cultural conquest or moral conquest. Or we can also say that this Rock Edict 13 also mentions that Ashoka changed from Chandasoka to Dhammasoka, right? So that is another aspect. So Ashoka changed from Chandasoka to Dhammasoka. That means cruel Ashoka to peaceful Ashoka. So this Rock Edict 13 indicates that Ashoka adopted the policy of Dhamma. Ashoka adopted the policy of Dhamma, right? So this is another significant information that comes from Ashokan inscriptions, right? So similarly, coming to another aspect, Dhamma. So same Rock Edict 13 mentions that after Kalinga War, Ashoka adopted Buddhism and its Buddhist philosophy called Dhamma. So that is another information that comes from Ashokan edicts. Similarly, coming to social aspect, so these Ashokan edicts, especially Pillar Edict 7, Pillar Edict 7 mentions about various social welfare measures of Ashoka. So like Ashoka's treatment towards women, servants, slaves, animals, right? So these aspects were mentioned, the social aspects, social conditions of different people under Mauryan rule were mentioned through Pillar Edict 7, right? So here in this case, we can also mention about welfare measures of Ashoka also, especially again, Rock Edict 2. Rock Edict 2 mentions about Ashoka's welfare measures. So this Rock Edict 2 mentions about Ashoka's benevolent approach, the policy of paternal kingship, policy of his approach towards poor, plantation of trees, construction of roads, digging of wells, as well as construction of various medical facilities for humans and animals, right? So these are all mentioned. So that is Ashoka's welfare measures were mentioned through Rock Edict 2, right? Last but not least, so these edicts will also help us in understanding linguistic history, right? Linguistic history in the sense, especially these edicts were issued in which languages? They were issued in Prakrit, Greek, and Aramaic, and as well as they were issued in which script? They were issued in Brahmi script and Kharosthi script. So obviously, from these inscriptions, we get to know about the information on languages used, and we get to know information on the scripts used, right? So this is about importance of Ashokan inscriptions in construction of Mauryan history. So this is important here. So while writing the importance, you have, see, if you observe here, I have divided the body into subtopics. So in the body, I have kept the heading called importance of Ashokan inscriptions in reconstruction of Mauryan history. That will be your body heading. And within that, I have divided that content into sub aspects like political aspect, administrative aspect, another war aspects, cultural aspects, social aspects, so welfare aspects, and linguistic aspects. So this indicates if you write answer in this format, in these different dimensions, you will fetch more marks. So entire content will be covered. So I have provided examples. I have divided. I have addressed different aspects within the demand of the question, and I have given the names of the historians who commented on these Ashokan edicts, and we have written each and every point with related to the demand of the question, right? So in the conclusion, you can conclude by saying that these Ashokan inscriptions are indispensable for reconstructing Mauryan Empire because of because they provide valuable information on administration, territorial expansion, imperial ideologies, king's policies, social conditions, right, etc., through contemporary evidences which are available, right? So that is your approach and structure and content of the first question. So question is quite straightforward question, but the thing is, though, as I mentioned earlier, though the questions were simple and straightforward, but you have to provide the answer in more analytical way. Otherwise, you won't get good marks, right? So let's move on to the second question. So the question is, discuss the impact of Macaulay's minutes on colonial administration and education in India. So this question is from modern India. So that is India under British. So specifically, the topic is the topic related to this question is British reforms in India. So as you know, British carried various reforms in India with respect to judiciary, with respect to civil services, with respect to police, with respect to army, and with respect to education as well. So here the question is related to this education, asking you to discuss. So this is the tag word here, impact. So the demand is asking you to discuss the impact of it. So central theme was what? Macaulay's minutes. So the central theme of the question is Macaulay's minutes. I will discuss what is this Macaulay's minutes. So central theme is Macaulay's minutes. So this is central theme. Demand is asking you to discuss what? Impact of Macaulay's minutes on what? On administration and education, right? So here question consists of two parts. See, and one more important thing, always break the demand. So break the demand of the question. So here central theme of the question is Macaulay's minutes, and demand is asking you to address the impact of that Macaulay's minutes on what? On colonial administration and education. So two aspects: impact of Macaulay's minutes on colonial administration, impact of Macaulay's minutes on education. So in this way, you have to structurize your answer, right? So let us see what would be the introduction. So in introduction, you have to mention about what is this? Macaulay's minutes. So what is this Macaulay's minute, which occurred in 1835? See, basically, I will provide the background for this. See, under Charter Act 1813, the British government have provided that a sum of 1 lakh rupee, an amount of 1 lakh rupee must be allocated for development of education in India. Okay, so that was a provision added through Charter Act 1813. So which says that a sum, an amount of 1 lakh rupee should be allocated for development of education in India. Okay, but what happened? That amount was not dispersed frequently. So though the act says to disperse it, but it was not dispersed periodically. So that's why in 1823, the government appointed a committee, the Committee on Public Instructions, or General Purpose Committee on Public Instructions. So this committee consists of 10 members. So This committee is to decide upon the development of education in India. But actually what happened in this committee, there was a dilemma. What was the dilemma? What type of education must be provided or supported in India? Whether it should be Oriental education or it should be Western education. So Oriental education means our Indian studies, Western education means European studies. So this was the dilemma, and that dilemma was resolved by Macaulay in his famous speech that's called Macaulay Minute. Understood? So in this introduction, what you have to write? You have to write that Macaulay Minute, speech given by Thomas Babington Macaulay in 1835, through which he emphasized on what? Western education regarding India's educational policy. So this speech have taken a decision regarding education policy in India. So what is this education policy? In his speech, he mentioned to uphold what? Uphold Western English education and modern knowledge, and rejected Oriental learning. So in this famous speech, so he upheld English education, that is modern education or Western knowledge, and rejected Oriental learning. So in his speech, he famously says that Oriental learning, though it was performed very much better in ancient India, but it lost touch as we transform into modern India. So that's why he considered Oriental learning as backward as compared to modern education or Western education. So that's why he rejected Oriental learning and upheld Western education with English. Okay. So this actually transformed the education policy in India. So that is the significance of this Macaulay Minute, which is given by Thomas Macaulay in 1835. Understood? So this will be your introduction part. So, but the demand is what? Demand is asking you to address the impact, right? So let us see. Impact. So let us say impact on education and impact on colonial administration. So we have to write in two different aspects. First aspect is impact on education. Second aspect is impact on colonial administration, right? So let us see first on education. So it decided what? It made English as medium of instruction. So this speech have decided what? English should be the medium of instruction. Okay, so that means after this, that means Oriental languages were rejected. That means vernacular languages were rejected, and English was kept as medium of instruction in education, that is at schools, colleges, and universities. Understood? So that is one thing. Second is, another major impact is spread of Western ideas. So this is important thing, especially introduction of this modern education into India have led to a massive spread of Western ideas. So Western ideas of European philosophers like John Locke, reserve actual Indians, which actually later helped in Indian nationalism. So that I will see later. I will discuss later. Right. So that is spread of Western ideas. Western ideas in the sense, which ideas? Ideas like liberty, equality, fraternity, justice, freedom, republic, etc. So these aspects, these ideas have gradually spread into India. Another impact is rise of educated Indian class. So this spread of modern education, the spread of modern education or Western education helped in emergence of a new modern educated Indian class. Like, for example, you can take many examples like Dadabhai Naoroji, Surendranath Banerjee, Raja Ram Mohan Rai, Devendranath Tagore. So these are various Indians who, these are especially Indian intellectual class, which emerged especially in late 19th century and 20th century, especially because of this introduction of Western education. Okay. Another is decline of traditional educational institutions. Like obviously earlier, before introduction of this modern schooling method, earlier we used to have patashalas, we have gurukuls, we used to have madrasas, which mostly the education provided by these gurukuls and madrasas was mostly religious literature. So education is not secular, right? So, but with the rise of this modern education, there was a decline in these traditional educational institutions in India. So these were replaced by modern schools and colleges. So that is another significant impact. So what are the impacts on education? English was made as a medium of instruction, spread of modern or Western ideas, rise of new educated intellectual class, and decline of traditional institutions, right? So this is impact on education. So let us see second aspect, second part of the demand, impact on colonial administration. So impact on colonial administration. What is this colonial administration? Supply of Indians in administration. Right, supply of Indians in administration means now this modern education have helped in creating a pool of Indians which helped the British in administration, because these Indians acted as junior officials, clerks, and various and they held various positions in the government, so which helped in administration of colonial empire, right? So especially in terms, they helped in administration, revenue, judiciary, right? Second is administrative uniformity. See, this introduction of modern education or introduction of English education in India, so created a sense of uniformity in administration, because the policies adopted by the British or laws implemented by the British were in English language, and they maintained that throughout the country. So it brought a kind of uniformity across the country, irrespective of different vernacular languages. It created a pool of Indians. So we know the famous line said by Macaulay that he wanted to create a class of persons who are Indian in blood and color, but English in taste. So that was a statement given by Macaulay. So what was that? He wanted to create a class of persons who were Indian in blood and color, but English in taste. So that was another impact on colonial administration. And another is rise of, or first of all, we can say cultural hegemony. So this is like cultural imperialism. So we can say that cultural imperialism. What is this? So it established a superior feeling or superiority or racial superiority of the Britishers over Indians. So promoting the culture of Europeans and suppressing the culture of Indians, right? And another significant impact is, last but not least, it also helped in rise of nationalism, right? So this is another significant event. So which actually, so though it was unintended consequence, but actually the rise of intellectual class in India actually carry forward the nationalism throughout the 20th and 21st century, right? So this is the demand, that is impact of Macaulay's minute on education and colonial administration, right? So in this way, you have to address the demand of this question. So what could be the conclusion? So conclusion, you have to write this Macaulay's minutes or this Macaulay's education policy ultimately nurtured the educational class that challenged the colonial domination and led India's freedom struggle, right? So that will be your conclusion. So that is your second question. Understood? So let's move on to the next question. That is third question. This again, this question is also from modern India. So significance of Gandhian movements lay in the masses they mobilized, elucidate. So let us see the question. What is the question? The significance of Gandhian movements lay in the masses they mobilized. So this question is from Indian national movement. The topic is Indian national movement, especially Gandhian movement. Okay. So what is the central theme of the question? Central theme is Gandhian movements. So whether you take non-cooperation movement, civil disobedience movement, or quit India movement, so these were called as Gandhian movements. So what's the demand of the question? Asking you to elucidate the significance of these Gandhian movements in mobilization of masses. So that's the question actually. Asking you to elucidate or examine the significance of Gandhian movements in mass mobilization, right? So let us approach the question. Intro. So what would be the intro? In the introduction, you have to highlight Gandhian mass movement or Gandhian mass nationalism. So as you already know, Gandhi, after arriving in India in 1915, and particularly from 1917 onwards, he started his political struggle in India. So whether in the form of Champaran Satyagraha, later Kedah Satyagraha, later Ahmedabad mill strike, and later from 1920 onwards, he launched non-cooperation movement. Later in 1930, civil disobedience movement. In 1942, Quit India movement. So these are various movements carried by Gandhi in India during Indian national movement. So in the introduction, you have to mention about these Gandhian movements which were carried by Gandhi in the form of satyagraha. Satyagraha, which is based on the principles of truth and non-violence, right? So that should be the introduction part. And in the body, that is the demand. So you have to address the significance. So my heading would be significance of Gandhian movements in mass mobilization. Significance of Gandhian movements in mass mobilization. So what should I write? It taught, first of all, these Gandhian movements helped in teaching the methods of satyagraha to the people. So, which is based on the principles of truth and non-violence. Second is, he transformed the Indian national movement from constitutional agitation to mass-based political struggle. So, the second significant aspect was he transformed his mass movements, or his movements transformed the Indian national movement from constitutional agitation to mass-based political agitation on the basis of or through the method of satyagraha only. Right. Another significant aspect is transformed the national movement. Instead of using the word transformed, I will use the word shifted the national movement from urban areas to towns and villages. See, if you see examples like early movements, even let us take example of Swadeshi movement. Swadeshi movement was more or less confined to urban centers, right? So later on, when Gandhi arrived, so Gandhi shifted this national movement or struggle for India's independence from these urban areas, because earlier it was confined to where? Confined to Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, Pune, Ahmedabad, right? So, but with the arrival of Gandhi, he shifted this national movement from urban areas to mid-towns and villages. So this have enhanced the scope of Indian nationalism, right? So that is another aspect. Another significant aspect is he drawn different sections of population. See, earlier Indian national movement is more or less confined to educated Indian class, but with the arrival of Gandhi and his movements, this Indian national movement have shifted to or transition into many other classes, especially which classes we can say here? Peasants, workers, women, tribals, students, etc. Right? See, with arrival of Gandhi, Gandhi was very much successful in drawing different sections of population into Indian national movement. So who are they? See, let us say peasants. So especially Gandhi, with the arrival of, immediately after his arrival, he started touring across the country to understand the conditions of Indians. So in that process, Gandhi addressed various peasant issues like Champaran. So he carried Champaran Satyagraha in 1917. He led Keda Satyagraha in 1918. Right. Later, under his leadership or under his guidance, Badoli Satyagraha was carried in 1928. Right. So with these Satyagrahas, Gandhi drawn peasants into Indian national movement. Right. Similarly, workers. So coming to 1918, he led Ahmedabad mill strike, where he addressed the issues of workers, especially the conflict between mill workers and mill owners. Right. So in this way, he integrated the grievances of workers into Indian national movement. Similarly, women. So large-scale women participation was seen under Gandhian movements, especially civil disobedience movement. So if you see the Salt Satyagraha, which was carried by Gandhi in 1930, it was mostly led by women who have who have violated the salt law and who have picketed those shops which are selling foreign products, right? So massive participation of women like Sarojini Naidu, Kasturba Gandhi, Kamala Devi, Chattopadhyaya, right? Annie Besant, later Aruna Asaf Ali, later Usha Mehta, all these have very much reacted to the call of Gandhi. Similarly, tribals. So though tribals were a distinct set of population, but they also contributed to Indian national movement, especially with the arrival of Gandhi, or who were attracted to the Gandhian methods. So let us take examples of forest satyagraha in Andhra Pradesh, forest satyagraha in Maharashtra, right? Palnadu satyagraha in Andhra Pradesh. So these are different movements led by tribals, so which reacted to the call of Gandhi. And even during the time of civil disobedience movement, leaders like Rani Gaidelu, who reacted to the call of Gandhi and significantly participated in the Indian national movement. Right, students. So most importantly, students. So Gandhi was very much successful in driving students to the national movement. So many students voluntarily left their schools and colleges. They boycotted them and they participated and extended support in the national movement. Right. So in this way, we can say the Gandhian movements were very much successful in mass mobilization. So that is the demand, the significance of Gandhian movements in mass mobilization. So you have to provide the introduction regarding Gandhian mass movements on which are based on the principles of Satyagraha, and in the body you have to address various aspects, that is significance, that is nothing but importance. So he taught the methods of Satyagraha. He transformed the Indian national movement from constitutional agitation to mass-based political struggle. He shifted the momentum from urban areas to towns and villages. He have drawn various sections of population into mass or national movements, right? So in the conclusion, you can write that the greatest achievement of Gandhian movements was politicization of masses and mobilization of masses, which became a collective aspiration. That is, freedom struggle or independence became a collective aspiration rather than a demand of the elite classes of Indians, right? So that will be your conclusion, right? So this is your third 10-marker question, right? So let us see the next question, 11th question. So here 15-marker question. So this question is from medieval India, but specifically art and culture section. So let us see the question. Vijayanagara architecture exemplifies the amalgamation of past traditions with contemporary practices. So that's the statement. So central theme is Vijayanagara architecture. So central theme is Vijayanagara architecture. And what's the demand? Demand is saying that, so statement is Vijayanagara architecture exemplifies, or we can say it is an indication of amalgamation of past traditions with contemporary practices. So here you have to mention about, so the demand is asking you to analyze how this Vijayanagara architecture is an example of amalgamation of past traditions and contemporary practices. So let us see. Intro. In intro, what you have to write? You have to introduce about Vijayanagara Empire and its architecture. See, so how I will introduce Vijayanagara Empire, which ruled between 1336 to 1650. So across the areas of Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. So this Vijayanagara Empire emerged as a largest force, especially after the decline of Delhi Sultanate in India. And so this Vijayanagara Empire is known for, well known for administration and cultural development, cultural growth of South India. And specifically, you should also highlight one point here, that they have developed a significant style of architecture, which is called as Vijayanagara style of architecture. So that's the central theme here. So we are discussing Vijayanagara style of architecture, right? So that's why Here we can also add a historian also, that is Percy Brown, have mentioned that Vijayanagara architecture is the last greatest phase of Dravidian architecture. What was said by Percy Brown? Percy Brown said that Vijayanagara architecture as last great phase of Dravidian architecture. So you can use that as value addition, so which you will get more good marks, right? See, coming to the body. See, here in the body, so we have to write two. Again, we have to divide the body into two sections. First is, it is an amalgamation of past traditions, and as well as contemporary practices. So what you did? What you have to write? So you have to address two aspects here. That is, they continued the past traditions, but they also created more contemporary innovations. So let us see them. So in the body, I will address this first aspect. Continuity of past traditions. Let us see them. First and foremost is Dravidian architecture. See, though Vijayanagara Empire developed a distinct style called Vijayanagara style of architecture, but it is nothing but a sub-style of Dravidian architecture. So, because most of the features of Dravidian architecture were continued to be used by Vijayanagara Empire. So, let us take examples like use of pyramidal vimanas, use of mandapas, use of garbhagrihas, use of sanctums, sanctoriums, right? Use of gopurams. All these are already features of Dravidian architecture, right? So that's why we can say they continued Dravidian architecture, but developed as a substyle of Dravidian architecture. Next, Chola influence. Chola influence. So especially here under Chola influence, so what they have taken? Axial planning, pyramidal vimanas or vimana structures, enclosure structures, right? So these are features taken from Cholas. So what features were taken from, what features were continued by Vijayanagaras taking from Cholas? That is axial temple planning, that is temple-centered urbanism, pyramidal vimanas, enclosure structures. So these are taken by Vijayanagaras. So best example, Virupaksha temple, right? Next is a continued Hoysala influence, especially with respect to Hoysalas. They incorporated sculptures, and intricate carvings. So taking from Hoysalas, they used Hoysala sculptures and intricate carvings in their own style. So especially we can take examples from Vital Swami temple and Hazarama temple, right? Similarly, so we can take they continued Chalukyan influence as well, like multi-pillared halls, mandapas, etc. So these were taken from Chalukyas. So that is multi-pillared halls and huge mandapas were the features of Chalukyas which were adopted by Vijayanagaras. So best example, temples at Hampi, right? So these are some of those traditions which were continued by Vijayanagara Empire. So in Vijayanagara style of architecture. So apart from that, so let us say, I will rub this part, we'll write separately. So the second part is apart from containing previous features, they also created various innovations. So that's why we can take it as contemporary innovations. So what are contemporary innovations? The features were Rai Gopurams, Kalyana Mandapas, composite pillars, musical pillars, secular buildings, etc. Right? See, Vijayanagara style of temple architecture is very much well known for what? Rai Gopurams. What are Rai Gopurams? Rai Gopurams are huge gateways. Sometimes these huge gateways, in fact, outshined the Vimana structure of the temples, right? So that is a significant feature of Vijayanagara style of architecture. What was that? Rai Gopurams. Rai Gopurams are nothing but huge entrance gateways. Another feature is Kalyana Mandapas. So Kalyan Mandapas are huge assembly halls, huge mandapas, which are specifically used for performing marriage ceremonies of gods. So divine marriage ceremonies were performed in these mandapas. So that's why we call them as Kalyana Mandapas, which is another significant feature of Vijayanagara style of temple architecture. Similarly, they have used composite pillars, so which is actually a unique Vijayanagara innovation in which they have used depictions of horses, warriors, mystical figures, and various other animals in those pillars. So that is another innovative aspect. Musical pillars. Some pillars, by tapping the pillars, as the pillars produce a certain musical note. So which was another significant feature of Vijayanagara structures. And last, secular buildings, which is very important aspect, because here they have adopted features from Indo-Islamic architecture as well, mixing it with Indian indigenous architecture styles, right? So we have examples like Lotus Mahal, we have elephant stables, Mahanavami Dibba, right? So these are well-known examples for secular buildings. And another is, we can also add urban planning, water management. Best example for urban planning was Hampi. In fact, travelers like Niccolo Conti, Abdul Razak, Domenico Pes, who visited the city called Hampi and mentioned that this Hampi actually outshined many European modern cities, right? So that is the significance of the contemporary innovations of Vijayanagara. So that's why Vijayanagara architecture is an amalgamation of continuing past traditions and as well as contemporary innovations, right? Understood? So in this way, you have to address the demand of this question by breaking the question into two parts, that is amalgamation of past traditions with contemporary practice. So you must provide examples. So which I have provided examples like Vittal Swami Temple, Hazar Rama Temple, Virupaksha Temple, temples at Hampi, right? Structures like Lotus Mahal, elephant stables, Mahanavami Dibba, right? So you have to provide all these examples, right? So this is your the first 15 marker question. Next question, 12th question, another 15 marker. So this question is from post-independence. This question is from post-independence. So what is the question? Linguistic reorganization of Indian states was driven by a popular pressure from below. Comment, right? What's the so central theme of the question is linguistic reorganization of Indian states. That is your central theme. What's the demand? Demand is saying that this linguistic reorganization of states was actually driven by popular pressure from below. So that is democratic agitations from below. So this is your demand. So in the introduction, you have to mention about linguistic reorganization of Indian states. See, after independence, so first and for the first major task before independent India was integration of princely states into India, and the second most important challenge was linguistic reorganization of states, because this linguistic reorganization of states was a very age-old demand in India. Okay, so you have to write, you have to introduce regarding that linguistic reorganization. Especially this linguistic reorganization is an important challenge before the independent Indian government after independence. So many states started demanding reorganization or creation of a new state on the basis of language to recognize. So even government of India also succumbed to this pressure to recognize the federal structure of India. Okay, so and in the introduction itself, you can add one line that linguistic reorganization was largely a product of democratic pressure from the below. Okay, so you have to write such introduction. See, basically, before moving on to the body, first of all, you should know the background story of this linguistic reorganization. First of all, see, the point is here, creation of linguistic provinces. Creation of linguistic provinces. So this creation of linguistic provinces was a demand which started from 1910s itself. The story goes back to 1910s or even before that. Especially Telugu speaking people were part of Madras state. So though Telugu speaking people constitute nearly 45% of area and 40% of population, there was still the politics of Madras were dominated with Tamilians only. So this hurted the sentiments of Telugu people, and since then they started demanding for a separation of states. So that's why this story starts from as early as 1910s. So addressing these issues in early 1950s and 16s, the Congress set up a provincial committee based on language. So that was the first step taken by the Congress towards a recognition of aspirations of Telugu people on the basis of language. Okay, after that, even in the Home Rule movement in 1916, Annie Besant and Tilak also supported the cause of creation of linguistic provinces. And in 1920, another step was taken by Congress, that Congress have created provincial Congress committees in provinces based on language, right? And similarly, in 1928, Nehru report. So Motilal Nehru also added a provision called creation of linguistic provinces. Okay, so this is your background. This is the history of demand of linguistic provinces, creation of linguistic provinces. But however, what happened after independence? So we got independence in 1947. Along with many other challenges, one major challenge that faced by the government of India was creation of linguistic provinces. So especially the demand came from Telugu language people, so who are actually part of Madras state. So these Telugu people who are part of Madras state, they started demanding for separation of Telugu speaking areas from Madras. Okay, so in this context, due to this demand, the government appointed Dar Commission in 1948. So this Dar Commission have rejected the demand of the Telugu people. Again, in 1948-49, the government appointed a committee called JVP Committee. So this committee consists of Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, and Patabi Sitaramaiah. And this committee also rejected the demand of creation of a Telugu-speaking state. So these two rejections led to a huge agitation in 1952. A Gandhian leader called Potti Sriramulu undertook fast unto death. So demanding for Telugu state. So he carried the fasting for 56 days and died due to this fasting. So died for the cause actually. So this death of Potti Sriramulu have created a huge ruckus in Madras state, where the public property was demolished, people agitated, violence became a huge scene. Okay, so finally, due to this growing agitation and violence, in 1953, the government of India have announced creation of first linguistic state in India, that was Andhra state. Okay, so that is your background to this demand. Okay, so now coming to the demand. So in the body we have to write about what's the demand. The demand is saying that linguistic reorganization of state was driven by popular pressure from below. So that's what we'll write here by taking some examples. We can take examples. So here we have to explain from the examples point of view. First of all, Andhra state. So that is fasting of Potti Sriramulu, followed by agitation and protest by Telugu people. So that is one example. So which resulted in what? Creation of Andhra state in 1953. So another example we can take. Samyukta Maharashtra movement. See, again here in 1956, 55 in fact, Fazal Ali Commission, which is also called as State Reorganization Commission, released its report, and on the basis of that report, the government have enacted State Reorganization. This is State Reorganization Commission. Government enacted State Reorganization Act 1956. Under this States Reorganization Act, it was reorganized into 14 states and 6 UTs. So this is the story of 1956. But even after 1956, there were many demands regarding the creation of linguistic provinces. One such demand was Samyukta Maharashtra movement. So this movement carried by Marathi speakers. So they demanded for creation of a separate state for Marathi speakers, which includes Bombay as well. So they carried demonstrations, strikes, public campaigns. So ultimately, these campaigns resulted in creation of a separate Maratha speaking state called Maharashtra in 1960. Right, that is one example. Another is Maha-Gujarat movement. Again, after 1956, Gujarati-speaking people, which are actually part of Maharashtra or the Bombay state, they started demanding for separation of Gujarati-speaking people from Marathi-speaking people. So this movement is called as Maha-Gujarat movement. So this movement also continued for nearly 4 years, from 1956 to 1960. So finally, in 1960, a separate state for Gujarati-speaking people called Gujarat was created in 1960. Right? Another is Punjab Subha movement. Again, so it was this is a movement led by Akali Dal. So Akali Dal demanded for separation of Punjabi speaking people from Hindi speaking people. See, before 1966, Punjab consists of Punjabi speaking people, Hindi speaking people, and hilly areas. So finally, due to this demand, in 1966, Punjab was reorganized into the Punjab speaking people were separated as Punjab, Hindi speaking people were separated as Haryana, and hilly regions were separated as Himachal Pradesh. Right? So this is the reorganization of Punjab in 1966. Similarly, reorganization of Kerala, that is Malayalam speaking people. Similarly, reorganization of Karnataka, that is Kannada speaking people, also carried in different time periods. Okay, so this is what the reorganization of linguistic states in India was actually as a result of popular pressure from below. That is, below means people. Okay, so what is the positive outcome? What are the positive impact of these popular pressure from below? See, basically, we can say that it strengthened the democracy. Actually, you have to write that also after quoting these examples. So what you have to write? You have to write positives out of this. What are the positives? That it strengthened democracy. It addressed the regional aspirations. It reduced regional imbalances or regional alienation. And most importantly, it also strengthened unity in diversity. Right? So in this way, you have to address this demand of this question. Right? Next, coming to the last question. The model of planned economy was adopted in India to address the regional imbalances left behind by colonial rule. So the central theme here is regional imbalances. So this is central theme. What was the demand? The model of planned economy was adopted by Government of India to address these regional imbalances, which are actually left behind by colonial rule. Okay, so let us see. See, basically, in the introduction part, you mentioned about regional imbalances. See, because regional imbalances left by whom? Colonial rule. Because British predominantly concentrated in Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, which are their presidencies. So most of their infrastructure, most of development, most of industries were predominantly concentrated in these main centers. So especially British more focused on coastal areas but neglected hinterland. So why they concentrated more on coastal areas? Because of the trade. They have to carry the goods. They have to export goods from India to England and England to India. So that's why most of these coastal areas. So their presidencies were also coastal areas only. That is Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay. So predominantly they neglected hinterland. That is interior part of India. So what will happen? So this will create regional imbalances. Few areas are extremely developed, whereas few areas are completely underdeveloped. Right? So that's the background of this question. So now the major challenge before India after independence was this regional imbalances. Regional imbalances with respect to what? Industries, infrastructure, investments, educational development, right? Connectivity. So you have to write that as your introduction. So, and it is a major challenge before the government of India to address this regional imbalances, which are actually left behind by British colonial rule. So first of all, in the body, you have to give points on examples of these regional imbalances. Imbalances with respect to industries, infrastructure, connectivity, agriculture development, irrigation, etc. Okay, so industries which are predominantly concentrated in urban, coastal urban centers, infrastructure, that is railway network, was predominantly developed in these centers, especially for the benefit of colonial rulers like carrying the trade, that is export of goods, carrying the raw materials, right, and transporting men and material during times of wars. Okay, and as well as connectivity. Agriculture development was also mainly concentrated in those areas which favored the British, especially Punjab, Western UP, right? So similar to the irrigation. So these developments, concentration of these development in only few centers created regional imbalances. So now this regional imbalance has to be addressed by government of India after independence. So the question is, the demand is, you have to mention how the government of India after independence have addressed this regional imbalances. Okay, so as you know, right after independence, the government adopted planning. So government adopted planning method. So under which the government set up a non-statutory body called Planning Commission. So Planning Commission, which would be chaired by Prime Minister. So under this Planning Commission, the government adopted 5-year plans starting from 1951. So each plan had their own objective and as well as targets. So the targets were achieved. The government tried to achieve these targets which were set up under 5-year plans. So this is first step towards addressing the regional imbalances, right? So let us see how the government have addressed these regional imbalances. See, earlier I have mentioned concentration of industries. So now the government, under this planning, the government decided to decentralize industries. The government decided to decentralize industry. So if we take examples, Rourkela Steel Plant, Billai Steel Plant, Durgapur Steel Plant, Bokaro Steel Plant were set up. So Rourkela Steel Plant, which was set up in Odisha, Billai Steel Plant was set up in Chhattisgarh, Durgapur Steel Plant was set up in West Bengal, Bokaro Steel Plant was set up in Jharkhand. So if you observe these areas are remote areas. So the government intentionally set up these steel plants or industries in these areas for regional development. So this is one major step towards addressing the regional imbalance. The second is multi-purpose irrigation projects. See, if you remember the words of Jawaharlal Nehru, he called the dams as the temples of modern India, right? So that's why if you can take examples like Bakranangal Dam, Hirakud Dam, Damodar Valley Project, Nagarjuna Sagar Project. So the government of India set up Bakranangal project, which helped development of Punjab and Haryana. Similarly, Hirakud Dam helped in development of Odisha. Similarly, Damodar Valley project helped in development of Eastern India, and Nagarjuna Sagar project helped in development of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana regions, right? So this is another major step towards addressing regional imbalances. Another is in 1952, the government launched a program called Community Development Program. So under this Community Development Program, the government focused on rural infrastructure, development of agriculture, development of irrigation, development of education, right? Development of local industries, right? So these are the steps taken by Government of India towards regional imbalances. Another is Green Revolution. So Green Revolution project, which was adopted in 1960s by introducing use of high yielding variety seeds, development of irrigation, extending loans to the credit facilities to the farmers, right? Mechanization of agriculture helped in removing the regional imbalances in agriculture in India, right? So these are various examples which taken over with the various examples of various projects taken up by Government of India to address regional imbalances in terms of agriculture, in terms of industry, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of education, in terms of irrigation, right? So this is the effort of planned economy or planned development carried by Government of India after independence to address these regional imbalances, which are actually left behind by colonial administration, right? Of course, there are still limitations. So after addressing the positives, you have to write some of the limitations or drawbacks, because despite adopting various projects and adopting various programs, projects and policies, there were still many areas still left behind or underdeveloped. And conclude by providing a way forward or measures, so which completes your answer. Okay, so these are the history questions from the GS1 paper 2026. So here in this section, I have discussed about 3 10-marker questions and 3 15-marker questions. So here in each and every question, I have explained how to understand the question, how to interpret the demand of the question, how to approach each question depending upon the tag word of the question, and what to write in the body in relation to the demand, and what are the introductions and conclusions that to be provided to each and every question. So in this way, you have to address these UPSC questions, right? I hope this video helped you a lot, especially in your preparation and especially answer writing for UPSC mains questions, right? So we'll meet you in next video. Thank you.